Good evening and welcome. I'm Zach Pozner, Director of Architecture from the University Architect's Office. Welcome to the second lecture in our series. The theme of this year's lecture series is composition. Composition in architecture is of paramount importance as it serves as the foundation for creating visually harmonious and functional spaces. The arrangement of elements such as form, color, texture, and scale within a design significantly influences the overall aesthetic appeal and user experience. Ultimately, the careful consideration of composition ensures that architecture transcends mere construction, becoming a form of art that engages and enriches the human experience. I want to thank the rest of our Spring Lecture Series team, Dave Lennox, Krista Van Hove, Padma Puditipudi from the University Architect's Office, as well as Ethan Wood and Jeffrey Tuttle from the Sustainable Architecture and Engineering Department. I would also like to thank the AIA Santa Clara Valley chapter for their help in advertising the series and registering our program for continuing education. Please sign the sheet by the front door to make sure you receive your credits. Our next lecture is in 2 weeks, and we're pleased to invite Jason Franzen from Herzog and Demeron. It will also be held right here at ChemH Neuro at 6:30 p.m. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Frans de Witte. Okay. So presumptuous. You just stand up every time people applaud? Okay, sorry.
You mentioned me.
I know. I did say your name. Okay. Partner and architect Frans de Witte joined MVRDV in 1996. And being America's studio director, he is currently leading projects in the Netherlands, the United States, Canada, and South America. Frans has executed many successful MVRDV projects such as Silo Dam, the Radio Tower and Hotel in Manhattan, the Sustainable Office and Laboratory Complex Matrix 1 in Amsterdam, as well as the 23-story mixed-use building, The Canyon in San Francisco, which is 95% complete, but mostly sold, which constitutes a key and integral part of the city's overall Mission Rock redevelopment. He is currently leading projects in the Netherlands, the US, Canada, and South America, including 6 residential towers ranging from 92 to 142 meters in Ecuador. How many feet is that? You know?
400 something.
400 feet. Okay. So big. The Scarborough Academy of Medicine and Integrated Health at the University of Toronto, a mixed-use project at the Enterprise Research Campus adjacent to Harvard Business School, and a master plan for affordable housing in Boston. And now, please give a warm Stanford welcome to Frans de Witte. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Let me first switch.
I'll be your IT guy. Yeah. There you go.
There it is.
Thanks.
So, good afternoon. So, as said, my name is Frans de Witte. I'm architect partner at MVRDV. We're working out of our office our base office in Rotterdam. In the last 30 years that we are an architecture office, we first opened a side office in Shanghai, then Paris, Berlin, and now also 2 years ago in New York. We're working with 320 people in total in our office, where from this 300, 250, 280 are in Rotterdam. We try to create social, innovative, realistic, green, remarkable architecture and urbanism for an ever-changing world. That's a bit of our motto that we're trying to do, doing always something different, always something special, but always something that makes hopefully people happy. And it started already, and that goes from all scales and all different projects. This is one of the first projects that MVRDV worked on. Also one of the first projects that I actually worked on. I did a very small part of this facade. I came into the office as an intern, had knowledge of building construction. I was asked to do a small part of the design. We did one iteration, and 4 weeks later it was built. And I thought, architecture is so easy. So we're not only working on elderly housing, we're also working on social housing, but also on bespoke villas. our preference is building where things come together. This is the market hall in Rotterdam, where you have 4 layers of underground parking, an underground supermarket, and then what you see here, the market hall, 2 levels of retail, and then actually the market is covered by housing. So on this side, it's affordable housing. On that side, it's 8 levels of condo, and inside you have the biggest artwork in the world, where you see the windows from the housing that go through and through. And inside the market, you have a typical European market where you have 100 stalls that sell food and other kind of elements. But you also work on museums. This is the depot in Rotterdam, the first public accessible depot. So this actually stores the artwork of the museum that's next to it. And instead of hiding it, it actually exposes it and opens it to the public. So this is a project where you can go in and actually see the art that it is normally stored. And how it's stored, how it's prepared, but also how it's kept. We work on building for $89 per square feet. But also facades that we are together with locally, we could actually totally design ourselves, and not only the design but also the material. So the facade was made from recycled glass bottles that we melted on the low temperatures, and then actually used as plates inside the facade. We work on all scales. So this is the glass kitchen that we designed, but we also work on the riverfront of Oslo, and on vision plans for urbanism. And one of the things that I want to talk on today is actually adaptive reuse. This is a project. This is a monument that half of it we are at the moment actually restoring and refitting, and also bringing into this century. And that's actually being paid by the white building that you see there. That's the headquarters of Uber in Europe, and that it not only protects the building from the sound and from the highway that behind it, but it also actually made it possible that we could actually afford the refurbishment of these buildings. How do we work, and what do we do, and how do we see it? The founding members of MVRDV, Maas van Rijs de Vries, the 3 partners, started actually also all with the idea that they wanted to really hopefully change the world. And this is a big part of it. The Club of Rome, that in 1972 already saw what we now all see, of course, that we're seeing the end of our resources and that we need to try to think and work differently. That urban sprawl causes traffic and emissions. Urban density is, of course, very sustainable, but also very stressful for the people who live there. And of course, that's not something new. I mean, this is a drawing published in the Times in 1905. Everybody probably knows it from Delirious New York, where it's the alternative to the skyscraper. And that's something that we're actually still looking at. How can we make livable cities? How can we add to the city in a different way to make them nicer and to make them livable? And of course, we're working in an industry where we need to change, and it's a slow change, and it's also something that we're trying, but also we're not succeeding all the time. It's we need to cut the amount of CO2 that we produce in our buildings. We need to think about our buildings on how do we deliver them and what we do them and how they are going to be used in the coming years. And then we do that with the sustainability goals from the UN. And we try to become 100% sustainable in the coming years. And that's not only by just cladding products in green, and we think that green is very important, and that's something that we do, and we also use it. This is a project that we're at this moment building in Eindhoven. Consists of 7 buildings. 2 of the buildings are adaptive reuse. 2 buildings are affordable housing, and 3 buildings are are one is for rent and two are for sale. So it's really a mixture. But also you see the roofs are green. The roofs are solar. We're really trying to add green, right? Really to add something different to the city. And of course, that's all start when in the design. So thinking about structure, thinking about where does the CO2 go to. We actually have our own MVRDV carbon guideline where we try to teach everybody in our studios and everybody in our office where does the CO2 go to, because we know that it won't be today, but very soon there will be an amount of CO2 that you can use per square meter that you're going to build. And where do you want to use it? Do you want to use it in your structure? Do you want to use it in your facade? What is important? And what can you do? What is available? So that is something that we're actively promoting in our office, and that's something that we developed ourselves and that we're pushing also. And it's not only about it; it's also about thinking about the future. This is Matrix 1, a building that I designed in Amsterdam for the university campus, where the whole idea about this building was the mountability and making sure that in 50 years, 95% of the building can be reused without doing something to the elements. So the whole building is built in such a way that, for example, the facade that you see is screwed on with screws that you can see and can easily detach. The steel structure is bolted and not welded. The concrete floors that are used are standard size. And we didn't pour them together, we clamped them to the steel structure. So, and it's actually not new. We used a lot of old techniques actually to do this again, and by reintroducing these techniques again into our practice, trying to make sure that that in 50 years or 30 years, when we are going to remove elements from the building, you can reuse them in other buildings. And of course, with all the information technology that we now have, and the BIM that we're using, is also something that's actually quite easy. We made a building catalog of this building where every element is tagged. And we also uploaded it, and that's called to a system called Madaster, and that actually stores the building information for buildings, so that in 30, 50 years, other people who then own or use the building can see what's in it, how much there is in it, and if they can reuse it. And other things we do is, one of the things that we also developed is the sea level rise catalog. And this came out of a project that we did actually here for the Bay Area in San Francisco, where we worked together with experts from all over the world to see what the Bay Area could do actually to prevent sea level rise, or not prevent level, but what could you do to make sure that if the sea level rises, what the impact could be and how you could maybe mitigate it. And also that we did it in San Francisco, but also for Vancouver. And that led then to this book with this catalog with all kinds of solutions. Sadly, it hasn't led to a project here in the Bay Area yet, where people start thinking about it. Because you just see that it works differently here in this area. There is no one identity that thinks about these elements in the California. Now, what I said, one of the things that I want to talk to you about today is transformations, because we see that this is one of the big things that is going on at the moment, and also what is going to be the big challenges in the next years. San Francisco, we see empty offices that are being bought up and that are going to be transformed at a certain moment. And we not only see it here, we also see a lot of buildings from the 70s that at this moment become of an age that people are starting to think we need to do something else with it, and how can we transform them and use them. And one of the buildings where we use this, where we did this, is our office. This is our office in Rotterdam, designed just before the Second World War, built directly after, and it's been designed as a multi-tenant building. The top floor were actually the houses of the people that maintained the building, and that were, say, the concierge of the building. The other part of the top floor was a restaurant for all the people working in there. And we are actually occupying this ground floor and these 5 And that were work sheds. These were the sheds where they actually produced elements, where they did the loading and offloading. And when we came into this office now 10 years ago, it was already then converted into an office, but there were only 50 people working there. It was really tight. It's a huge office. We're working there with 280 people at the moment. They were working with 50, but everybody had his own room. Everybody had an extra room available almost. So when we came in, the first thing we did was actually open it up and make use of the beautiful structure that is there and use of the beautiful light that comes in. But we divided the office in 3 parts. So this is the working part. And then we have what we call our family room. We have a long table where everybody has lunch every day between 12 and 2. So you take your lunch from the table, that's the small table over there. It's prepared in the kitchen that's behind it. You take a plate, you sit down, have lunch, talk to your colleagues, and talk and see what's going on. It's also the place where you come in, where we have a tribune, where we have presentations, where groups like this come in, and we invite them to our office. Not only students, but also people from contractors that come here. We give lectures. It's really a social space. And then the third zone is our meeting room. And every meeting room has a different color, and every meeting room also has a different function. One of the early projects that we actually worked on adaptive reuse was the Gemini residence in Copenhagen, where we were asked to redevelop these 2 concrete silos. The silos are 3 feet thick concrete. And that actually proposed a huge problem, because this was what we were able to do. If we were looking at the price of the apartments and the amount of steel that we needed and concrete that we needed to cut inside the concrete walls, this was a feasible solution. And we thought, yeah, this is literally not what you want to do there. So we actually came up with at that moment, together with a structural engineer, a very smart solution, and said, let's bundle these openings and only make openings for the doors. And instead of having the houses inside, use the strength of the concrete and hang the houses outside on the building. So making actually the houses on the outside, it not only gave the opportunity that you don't have very small, tiny windows in your apartment, but actually we were able to make balconies all around it and have living rooms and bedrooms with a lot of natural light coming in. And as a bonus, we actually also got this fantastic hallway. The nice thing is, if you look on this, you Google this project on Google Images, you will see a lot of images with people lying here in the middle. Somehow everybody is going to lie down and then send something up to make photos. I don't know why, but somehow a lot of people do it. This is a bigger project that we worked on, also adaptive reuse. It's in Paris. It's in the end it was 1.2 million square feet. It's a hotel that's the White Tower you can see, of 900 beds, and that there was a very small shopping center. This is owned by or Unibail Rodamco Westfield. Got this in a merger. They didn't really know what to do with it. They of course own huge shopping malls, but this was only about 15,000 feet of office of retail, and the rest was actually an underground library, the hotel, a congress center that didn't work anymore, and a very small office. And they came to us and they said, should we just tear it down, or do you see options to redevelop it together with us? And we worked with them for I would say almost 2 years, literally from tearing everything down, tabula rasa, start again, to also say, okay, it's actually a waste. It is a shame that the tower has still its qualities, the hotel works. How can we not redevelop it? And also talking to the city. So what we did actually is we added 50,000 square feet of affordable housing. So we added 62 apartments of affordable housing or social housing in it. And we added a big office complex and transformed the 7 layers of underground parking, brought it back to 5 layers, transformed 2 of these layers into a shopping center, and actually used the whole plinth that in this case was actually the big conference rooms, large part of the hotel that they didn't use anymore. And we transformed that all into an open shopping center. So we went from this to this, where you see here on the front, the office part, the hotel in the back. And from this, where you see again, this typical 70s, and then you see the lot of Paris doll, the doll, the doll, and then the slab, so that the podium and the tower on top of it, and on the podium were actually also connected at a higher level, and we transformed that into this, where then you see the entrance to the shopping mall, and what we did inside the shopping mall is trying to bring in light, air, green. Turning it from a dingy closed space to an open space. We also brought the library that was underground. We put it on the ground floor with a direct connection to the outside, so that it also became actually an element where everybody would go. Just actually opening it up and bringing light into this building. Sadly, it's not only the building from the 70s that we were working. This is a project in Shenzhen, and this is this is built in, I think it was finished in 93 or 94. So it's only 30 years old. But this was built in the first boom of Shenzhen, and it was built in such poor qualities that actually the whole ground floor never opened up, because the fire department just didn't allow retail to go there. So we were actually used or asked by the developer to think about the Sun Yat Women and Child Center that they wanted to put in here, but also then to see how we could redevelop this project and also revitalize the environment around it. So we went from this project, from this to this, and of course it took some time. And what we actually did is we had to strip the facade. The facade was such a poor quality construction that we also really couldn't use it. It was terminally inefficient. Windows were too small. So we removed the skin. We removed some elements of structure that weren't functioning, but we also strengthened it to make sure that the structure that was there was actually up to code and up to speed. We then came up with a concept for the facade, where the idea was that we would use the colors of the environment of the surrounding buildings that would fade into the color of the sky, and put that on the facade in the aluminum panels that we were going to use. And that resulted in this building. And we didn't stop with just the facade. We thought we really wanted to add something to this environment. So that also means that you need to do something on the roof, the fifth facade. So we also designed the whole fifth facade. It's a woman and child center. So we were also able to use, of course, some nicer colors than you would maybe not normally use. So that also means that, for example, the interior courtyards, again, adding elements with plants, adding seating elements, but also here, color, liveliness, the interior, making sure that it feels a home, it feels a place where children are welcome, and really transforming this 90s building that was largely a failure to a nice success at the moment. And we're actually now working on our first own building, adaptive reuse. Some people maybe know this building. This was for MVRDV one of the big breakthroughs. This was our first building that we did outside of the Netherlands. This was for the Expo 2000 in Hanover, Germany, where we were asked by the Netherlands to come up with the pavilion for the Expo 2000. This pavilion was always intended to be a temporary structure. Only the ground floor, what is a concrete structure, but for the rest it would be dismantled, and then it would actually be or rebuilt or actually reused in a different way somewhere else. This stack of landscape that we made there actually became such a success that they said, no, we're not going to demolish it, but we're going to keep it here and we're going to reuse it. This is how it looked 20 years later. They kept it, but they never reused it. So instead of just dismantling it and making sure that it got a good second life, they just ignored it, and it really became neglected. Luckily, we found at a certain moment a use for it. Together with one of our clients, we are now at the moment building student housing around it and redeveloping our building in actually to the center of this campus. So this is going to house the student facilities. The park that's on the fourth layer is going to be an outside park where people can sit. There's going to be study spaces where you can go and just sit behind your laptop and study. So it really became this element inside this whole new campus, and is now finally, after 25 years, getting a second life. And now we, of course, are extremely proud that we managed to. At first we were, please tear it down because it really looks terrible. It is not a very good business card for us. But now we are really happy that actually we can reuse and that we can use it again. The next project that I want to talk about is, and that actually led to this one project led to 3 different other projects. And it's a temporary structure, a stair that we made. Actually, a very simple thing, you could say. It needs a little bit of introduction. This is Rotterdam, somewhere 1940. This is Rotterdam, literally today, 15 May, but 1940. After the bombing of the Germans of the inner city of Rotterdam. You see, they created the tabula rasa for the city again to start again. The urban planners directly in during the war, together with actually the main figures from the harbor who owned the big companies, worked together actually on a new urban plan and on a new urban vision of Rotterdam. And one of the first buildings that they built was this building next to the station. Het groot handelsgebouw. And that what would start, say, the whole redevelopment of the inner city. And that took about 75 years to get there, from this empty space to rebuild the city. Some buildings are maybe rebuilt twice already. But to really become an attractive city. And one of the key elements there was this bridge, the Erasmus Bridge, because that helped to make the jump from Rotterdam from north to south and really expanded the whole inner city. But another important thing happened, and that was in 2014. All of a sudden, 3 important buildings for the city were finished. One was the central station, the new central station in the heart of the city, next to the first building that you saw. The second one was the Rotterdam, designed by OMA, that came, and the Renze Piano. And the third one was the Market Hall. And this actually changed the whole vibe of the city. And all of a sudden, Rotterdam became popular. Rotterdam was, I grew up in the city, and when I was a student in 95, there were no tourists because there were a lot of places where you could go for a beer, but you really had to know it. So tourists would come to the Netherlands and would go to Delft, Haarlem, and of course Amsterdam, but nobody would come to Rotterdam because Rotterdam was a harbor city. It was a rough city. But after these kind of elements, and then all of a sudden being the number one location from the New York Times to come to visit in the world, Rotterdam became popular, and everybody in Rotterdam all of a sudden thought, we're living in a fantastic city. And that really changed the attitude of the people living there. And that was really interesting to see and to notice. And then 2 years later, and when there was like 75 years after the reconstruction of this first building, they asked us, we should celebrate this. And how can we celebrate, say, the reconstruction of our city? And Winnie Maas at that moment made this simple sketch. He said, it would be fantastic that actually everybody can see the city. So let's make a stair where we can actually go up this first building that we built in the city. And then everybody can see what happened in the last 75 years. This was, again, one of the projects that went extremely quickly. This was the sketch that we made. We turned it into a render. And literally this render and the sketch and then the construction of it took less than 2 months. The mayor saw it and the mayor said, we're going to do this. And the whole permitting process took less than a week. So we built it, and then we thought, okay, let's see what happens. And when it opened, it actually became a problem. After the first day it opened, the fireman came and he said, yeah, sorry, we were closing it down. In the weekend, because it opened on Friday, and so the first weekend, what we did together with the structural engineer, we calculated the roof load that you could have on the roof, how many people could be there. Because there were so many people on the roof walking around that the fireman was just afraid that the roof couldn't structurally handle it. So we had to limit it to 1,000 people per hour that were allowed to go up. So it wasn't a problem with the stair, it was a problem with the roof that we had to solve. But it became an instant hit, and it was nice to see. People would come here, experience the city, see what has changed in the last 25 years. It became a people to take selfies. It became an instant Instagram hit. Football player or clubs would come here and celebrate when they had one. And it opened. We extended actually the opening hours and also the amount of time that it was there, to make sure that everybody had a chance to go up and to be there. And it really was a nice project. And then on the top of this roof, we actually mounted all kinds of little bit of images that we created. And this is one of them, where we showed actually that you now see all this roof, but we should actually do something with this roof. And maybe this stair that we now have as a temporary installation, we could actually maybe have as a permanent installation at other buildings. This is the Bijenkorf and Marcel Breur design, where you see the Photoshop that we did for the quick Photoshop with the plans on the roof, the stair. We said, let's start thinking about this second layer that we have here. Make sure that these roofs become green, accessible, and actually maybe also interesting for people. These elements actually led to a foundation, the Rotterdam Rooftop Days, that asked us to work with them. We already knew them because we made this extension on one of the rooftops in Rotterdam. It's an extension from a house. These are the sleeping quarters of the parents, and the two houses are for the children. And then the outside space that we created there. So it was really literally an extension of their house. But so we knew this because during their days that they had every year for the rooftop days, people would visit this space and they said, we really want to stimulate these kind of development. And do you have an idea how we could do it? And can we use the stair that you had there to push this further? And at their 15th year that they were in existence, we got the chance to develop two projects with them. The first was the podium in the HNI, and the HNI is in the museum park zone of Rotterdam, a development of Rem Koolhaas, where you have the head new institute. It used to be the Architecture Institute, is now Architecture and Art Institute. And we thought this structure on top of it, we should be able to do with that. That would be fantastic, of course, if you could do there something. What if we could have a viewing point there? So let's introduce a stair and a viewing platform, so that we and then not only use it as a viewing platform, but also as an education. So make sure that it's notable, people see it. So we looked at colors. We thought we could make it blue so that it maybe blends with the sky, or greens or yellow, so that you see the banners there. But of course we thought, and it was pre-Barbie, it needs to be hot pink. It needs to be visible. It needs to be a place where you want to go, that needs to be exciting, and it's a temporary structure, and it's something where it constantly changes. So there were lectures there were bars, there were presentations. So here you see how we constructed it. Here you see with the bar, there was at this moment there was a small exhibition there. People would go up. There was of course also an elevator that was connected to it, so that also people could go there. And we used it not only, so what I said, for the selfies within the background, our depot, but also for lectures and for other elements. And at the same time, we were actually lucky enough to do another project with them. And that was really for the general public. And that was a Rotterdam rooftop walk, where we thought it would be fantastic that we could actually connect multiple buildings with each other, and on the roofs of the buildings, show what you could do there. So we thought, let's connect these buildings, and let's also create a bridge between these buildings. So create this second layer in the city. So we again made a stair coming up, a bridge that would connect, and in between these elements, we would actually have little point where you could go get coffee. There would be planned. Would be actual explanations about what you could do on your own roof, or how you could get subsidy to turn your black roof into a green roof. So this became really how you could install solar panels. What are the possibilities? So this became not only an attraction, but also an education. And one of the things that we actually did is, in one of the spatios that was there, we created this stair going down, and you see this vault. And that's actually a catalog of opportunities that's there, what you can do. It's called the Rooftop Catalog. It's a book that we created together with this foundation. So it had a lot of different ideas of what you can do, how you could do it. It's not only images, it's also where does it come from, text. But of course also be a lot of inspirational ideas, before and after images. And we thought it was so important that we actually also, and I will come back to this later, we also made it publicly available. So if you want to download the catalog, or if you want to read it, you can take a photo of it and then actually download it on the later moment. But what I said, this stair actually also led to a third project, and this project that was the Seoul 7070 in Seoul. The park, the mayor at that moment in the city invited us to a competition. Seoul is one of these cities that, like many of the cities here in the 70s, thought that the car was the savior of the city. So they started putting, you see it here, an enormous amount of roads that connect the inner city. And one of these roads, that's this one, built in the 70s, was actually near its end of life. They did structural testing, and it wasn't feasible enough anymore for the cars to go there. And we were asked to participate in this competition. And our idea actually was to how can we transform this auto road, this highway almost that just closed, and how can we transform it into a pedestrian street? We have this situation, and if you actually analyze the environment, you see that there are all of these kind of different neighborhoods, but they are just disconnected because you have all these infrastructure in between. And how can we maybe connect them again? How can we make sure that this element that now becomes available connects these little neighborhoods with each other, and also actually adds to this? You see, it's an extremely gray and urban heating island. How can we change that? How can we help the city? The mayor, the park was actually trying to change the whole city to make it more greener. The big square in front of his office, he also turned into a park. And we thought, let's see how we can help and turn this project into an arboretum. And what we did is we looked at all the plants that they have in Seoul and Korea, and actually, according to their alphabet, place them on the bricks and transform this bridge into a destination, a connection element between all these neighborhoods. We also thought, this is actually not enough. We should, from this, add something so that it really connects all the neighborhoods. So that it's not only connecting the neighborhood, but also connecting to the train station. It's connecting to maybe sometimes offices. It's really bringing people together again. So these were the design sketches that we made and that we presented. And luckily we won the project. And so we were able to build it. So we transformed this road into this new pedestrian connection element between all these neighborhoods. And we not only changed it, we also added elements. You see here these elements that we added it so that we could make extra connections to this neighborhood. And it's not only a horizontal, but it's also a vertical connection. And then you see the plants that are there, helping to mitigate the heat island effect. A view from the bridge. And also you see that where it lands, it doesn't stop and it actually continues a bit. We try to push it as far as possible in the neighborhood as we could. So adding more green, adding elements, adding extra connections from the ground floor to this element, adding the little shops, kiosks, making connections towards the offices and the elements there, or the restaurants that were there on the first and the second layer. And this, of course, actually, the interesting thing, of course, that this is something that costs the city money, but it actually brought a lot of money towards all the buildings around it. All the buildings around it really profited. Their prices went up enormously. Play element for the kids. And this is and this is, I think it's also nice. This 2 years later, where you see the difference between the green, how we started, and the greenhouse now. And what I say, it's an arboretum. So the whole idea is that at a certain moment these trees are too big for the pots that are there. We're going to replace them somewhere else in the city, and we put newer, smaller plants in. So it's really going to function as this arboretum for the city. So you see that these are now decent sized trees that can be reused in other locations. And then in the evening, it also acts as a gathering space. You see there's a connection where people come together. There are exhibitions. There are people speak to each other. And it really changed and transformed these neighborhoods. It was a fantastic project to be able to work on it, to be invited. This is Tainan in Taiwan. Again, similar situation, the 70s, where everything was concrete, everything was really harsh, and we were asked to think about the redevelopment of this warehouse. When we arrived, actually, this was left. And this was a competition, and we thought, instead of demolishing everything, let's see what we can use from the existing structure that's still there and transform it into a place where actually now nobody wants to go, but to a place where actually everybody wants to go. And also a place that helps to mitigate the effect of heat in the public, opens the city up. So not build anything new, but keep it as it is, opening the city up. So what we actually did is we almost didn't demolish anything, but we actually just refurbished it and changed it. And we turned it into a public park. You see, this is the existing structure that you saw. We only painted it, we made it white. And we turned the cellar into this big public park that goes underneath the road. Water for the kids to play in. Fountains. At the moment, if you go down there, the space that you see underneath, they're parking filled with small restaurants, places where you can get something to drink. We're really changing this instead of demolishing everything, just changing it and making it an exciting place where everybody wants to be. Now the last part of my presentation, I thought it was also nice to show 3 of the projects that we are actually working on in the US. We've been lucky that in the last years we've been able to work on different projects. We have a couple of projects in Miami. We have 2 projects in Boston. Project delivered in New York, San Francisco, and some other things that. And I thought I would highlight 3 of them. This is the Enterprise Research Campus. It's a project in Boston. It's the Harvard Enterprise Research Campus. Harvard owns the land. We are developing this together with Inspire. And we're working here together actually with 4 different architects. It's Henning Larsen, Theo Gang, me, and Marlon Blackwell, who are working together on this landscape. For the people who were here for the lecture here, she maybe showed also this one. She did the landscape, and it's not only this landscape, it's actually part of a much larger landscape that is being developed at the moment. We are definitely the first development that is going to be built. We're doing the housing, get connected to the hotel, but we were asked to develop the housing. And in this building, we thought, it would be nice. We need to stack housing. We need to be efficient. But we thought, let's try to not only optimize the housing, but also try to have some diversity. So not only have one studio, but make 3 different depths of studios, so that some studios are a little bit more spacey. If you work from home, have space to actually put a desk somewhere. And also use this actually to do something with the facade. And what we want to do in this, because we're doing a mid-rise and a tower, and we want to articulate this facade in such a way that you see on the ground level, it has smaller grain in the facade, and it also helps to actually recognize it as a residential building. And then the higher you go, you get longer strings. And we drew inspiration from the bay window that you see there. So by stepping the facades in and out, we actually create bay windows in this. The apartment in the middle actually also have a view towards the side sometimes. And then to, again, work on this human scale of the building is not only stepping in and out, but also when it steps in and out, when it steps in, the grain of the fluting of the facade actually becomes smaller. So then again, adding a layer of texture to this project, making sure that it really feels like a home to people. And of course, what is extremely important in this project is this ground floor. making sure that this connection between the building and the landscape of scape and this and the other buildings is well designed. This is something that we really worked on, and not only did the landscape here, but also did the landscape in between the two buildings, making sure that it really feels like as one development. So this is the mid-rise and the high-rise. There's a slight chord difference between the two buildings. And you see the stepping in and out of the building, so that creating bay windows. That's also very inside in the middle of the block. You have windows that give a bigger view. Another project that we did is the Radio Hotel in New York. That actually started as the first design that we made, and this is 2012 or something like this. We were asked to, and this was by right possible because it used to be a gas station. And so there were a lot of curb cuts. And so we could do a driving McDonald's and like four layers. And the only thing that the client knew, it's Puerto Rican neighborhood, so we need a place on the top with a bar and we can get drinks and where you can have a party. That was the only thing, But we ended up with this. And between going from here to here, of course, is a big step. And how did that happen? We actually found out that this was the envelope. And I thought, right, we could only build the envelope to here. And if you wanted to use the top part of the envelope, you needed to build something that was for the neighborhood. And that meant you needed to do something like a school, a medical facility. But we actually started talking, and then mostly also the client, to the neighborhood, and we found out there are two hospitals close by. So a medical facility didn't make sense. There's the Yeshiva University next to it. But by talking actually to the university and the two hospitals, we found out that in this neighborhood, this is at the end of the Washington Bridge in Manhattan, Washington Heights, Inwood. It's a neighborhood of 400,000 people living there. There was only one hotel, 9 rooms. And it was this hotel where if you wanted, you could also pay by the hour. So there was something that was lacking there. So they were telling us what we really would need here is actually a hotel. And then looking around the neighborhood, we also found out that actually there are a lot of doctors there. There are a lot of lawyers there, but they were all having their offices in the second floor in the back. They couldn't rent a nice, decent office. So what we did is we actually developed this whole project with a 280-bed hotel and an event space and an office tower that can be divided in small rooms of 250 square feet, so that smaller units can be rented by the people that are living there. We went to the city, to the neighborhood, and they actually, without too much hassle, actually agreed and said, "Yeah, this is fantastic. This is what the neighborhood needs." So we then started designing, and we thought, we can introduce something here of a different scale. How are we going to do this? And we thought, what we maybe can do is actually that we actually take elements from the neighborhood and start stacking them. So use the same elements that you see and the same, and not only in blocks, but also in facade, how the facade look and use these elements that you see from the typical block in Washington Heights, and use these facade elements actually on our building. But also what I said, this is a neighborhood where a lot of different people live. There's a lot of Latin American people living here. There's a lot of food. The first time that I got out of the metro here at 180th Street, there was all these shops here where people were standing in front with this microphone trying to get you inside your shop. It was loud, it was colorful, and we thought, this is also something we can actually use. Now, how can we translate these elements from the print into our building? Well, what if we start using these colors inside our building? So we proposed to use this And also, of course, to make sure that it also is nice and stays nice, we opted for glazed brick so that it also has longevity. It stays nice on the long run. And we were able to build it. And so you see here, these 3 blocks are the hotel blocks. These 3 blocks are the offices, and this blue bar you see there, that's the event space. So we didn't go for the easy route to put the event space at the bottom. We put it in the middle. It's served by the hotel, so it has a direct connection. And the nice thing, of course, is with this event space at the middle, and it's landing at the end of the Western Bridge, where it is really acts as a beacon for this neighborhood. It's 150 million people a year see it because you have the highway and the connection of the Western Bridge here. So some images from the hotel, so that you had the outside and the inside work together. And then, of course, the event space. And by lifting it, all of a sudden, you also get this outdoor space with this fantastic view, actually, maybe the best view of Manhattan, looking back at Manhattan and seeing the whole town. And then the last project, let's see, I'm exactly on time. The Canyon, that's a project that we did here in San Francisco, where we had a very unusual client. The client actually is San Francisco Giants. For most people from this that come here, of course, know that the San Francisco Giants, originally the New York Giants, came here about 50 years ago. And then 25, 30 years ago, they were actually almost leaving the city. And at that moment, a couple of businessmen said, yeah, no, come on, we cannot let that happen. We will be the owner of the Giants, and we will build a new stadium for them. When they did this whole neighborhood around it in the last 25 years actually exploded. They built the stadium, and all of a sudden everybody came. And the Giants were like, we missed something. We could have made some money here, but they still have the parking structure on the other side of the bay. And what they actually did, and that's what you see here, they developed a master plan to develop their parking structure, and this was helped by they built a basketball stadium literally on the other side of the parking structure. And they put it up to a vote, and this was accepted. And then instead of just saying then, okay, we got it approved, let's hire an architect to do one of the buildings. They said, now let's do it a little bit differently. Let's try to do it as good as possible. So what they did is they hired 4 architects and a landscaper, who did the whole part in the front. And what they did is they organized actually for 6 months, every month, a workshop where MVRDV, Studio Gang, Work AC from New York, and Henning Larsen would come together and work on the buildings, on the ground floor, and criticize each other, try to make each other's building better. And that actually resulted in the end in one document where we set our mission goals. What are we going to do here together? What we did is, and this is of course a typical example of a Nolly map, for the urbanists, very recognizable, of course. We said one of the elements that we said, design ground floor in such a way that entrances of block, for example, this is our canyon that we need to make, connect to each other, that there is a secondary connection, that when you have a served road, mimic the entrance to the loading dock so that there's only a very small part of this road that is impacted and the rest of the road is actually still has quality. Trying to build together, really make this document and see all the elements that the ground floor, the voids, but also the podiums. If you have a podium, what do you do? We started calling the mesas because we were inspired by the geology of the surrounding areas. So really thinking about these kinds of elements. And also, how does a building land? So not just have a commercial plane and then above there's the building, but making sure that the building lands and the inside there then give the retailer freedom. We called it framing freedom, making sure that all the buildings land, that they work together, but then give freedom inside there. But also making sure that these element towers that are going to be there work together. So shape them in such a way that daylight, sunlight for these towers work together, and that there is enough daylight and sunlight on the Mission Rock Square. Color materials, and of course you can see the widest. These are the commercial buildings. This is an office and this is a laboratory building. You have a lighter color. This is here you see the developer came into play. Okay, you can play a bit with the residential. There you can have stronger colors. The office needs to be a bit milder, but we got it. We got it there, and we really combined everything. And it led in the end to this design where you have our building from MVRDV, Henry Larsen, Studio Game, and Work AC, and then the park from Scape. So we were at the corner. We had important, the handshake almost between at that moment AT&T Park, now the Oracle Park, and our building, the first building you go to see. So this was the program. It's a mixed-use building. We have on the ground floor retail, 2 levels of offices, and then for the rest residential. But also we have, and that's an interesting element, we have the DES, and that's the district energy plants inside our building. So instead of having hot and water in every different building, we are taking care of all the hot and cold water of the buildings, and we're using the bay water for it. In the Work AC plant, that's also they have black water purification, where all the water there from the towers go into there, and then we reuse them for all the plants that we have on our towers and the park. So really working together on all these elements. We raised the ground floor for 70 inch so that we are actually protected against stormwater surges. So, but because of that, we had, of course, residential, and we wanted to make sure again here that we have daylight inside our apartment, but also into the offices. We didn't want to make it very deep office floors and housing floors. So we needed to cut something in. And of course, we couldn't go to the ground floor because on the ground floor we had this district energy plan, and we didn't want to lower that into the ground. We wanted to keep it on the ground because we wanted to keep it above the water level, so that if something happened ever, it would never be underwater. We treated this element. We turned it so that the houses inside have a view towards the waterfront and the ballpark. We created bay windows. Made sure that the corner and the entrances were clearly visible. Of course, we added the green roofs for the biodiversity. Although, and you see the second floor where you have the office floor on one side, and on the other side, one of the amenities of cafe and co-working. So then this is on this publicly accessible roof in our building, and then it's on the outside the houses. And then underneath there you have then the plant and the loading, and on the ground floor on the outside all of the retail. And what you see here, only one door, minimizing the impact on the street for the loading. The urban connection that we make, our canyon actually connects directly to the front door of the visa building that's there. And this is the result. For the facade, we actually looked at for inspiration at the colors of the buildings in San Francisco. We did a whole study of different materials. In the end, ended up with the GFRC facade, where we embedded a mud so that there's depth and structure inside the facade. This is the photo before the landscape was finished, or the grass was there. Yeah, one of the important things, of course, that it became also the backdrop of this Giants game all of a sudden. So yeah, they have been incredibly involved on the whole project. Our building with the streets in between, the green. The office has an entrance on 3rd Street, but we also made an entrance directly from the canyon. So if you're coming from the parking garage, you can just walk up. You don't have to walk around the whole building. You see the outside, all the balconies with, that have this beautiful view. And of course, then, the fantastic view into the game. And then and this is actually the view from one of the top apartments. And that's it.
For 5 minutes of questions. If you have a question for Frans, please raise your hand and he'll call on you.
I was curious on this kind of basin project, like how you got all these different people to collaborate, like who is facilitating that?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So the question was basically, how did you get everybody to work nicely together in this China Basin Park? It actually, the one thing is that the organizer did is that they appointed one team leader that organized the events every month. They were from Studio Gang, but from the other office. So they were also separate from the design of their building. They were really doing, say, the urbanism and marking everything down and combining everything into reports. And I must say, with Studio Gang and with these people, we all know, first of all, we all know them. They worked most of them lived in Rotterdam or worked in Rotterdam. So we also had, they worked at different companies there. So we already knew them, some of them already for a long time. And that was actually a coincidence. The client didn't know that, but that was a coincidence for us. And I must say, it just worked together. It was just by being there, they were doing it multiple times. I mean, the first time everybody was just presenting their design, of course. But then sitting together and then also breaking the groups up. So we would have round table discussions I would be there together with Jeannie and with somebody from my work AC, discussing one of the topics and then coming to an agreement. And there would be another group, and by always having this separate, everybody was part of the decision everywhere. And I must say, it was one of the very nice processes to work on. It would be something that I would love to do on multiple more places, because it really elevated the whole, I think, the design and especially the urban experience.
Felt like when you considered the building size at University of Amsterdam, that you were making an argument that this is a good building because it can be taken apart and I've tracked all the materials. And so I'm wondering, do you think is sustainability becoming a brand narrative, much like modernism was? And so we go around saying, this is a good building because it's sustainable, because, you know, for somebody less talented than your firm, you get a building like we have here, like maybe the business school, where it's covered in photovoltaic cells, but it's a very boring building. And it could be any office park in Santa Clara. And so it's basically not an aesthetically good building, but people think it is because it's covered in photovoltaic cells. So how do you balance the sustainable and the aesthetic? Because it seemed like by the end of your lecture, you were talking more about aesthetic qualities of, let's say, the building in New York City.
I think on sustainability, I think sustainability has, of course, a lot of elements. And I think just adding photovoltaic, I mean, the roof of that building is filled with 1,000 square, so that's 10,000 square feet of photovoltaic, and that it provides 90 or 100% of the running energy of the building, not 100% of the end use. But it's sustainability is more than PV. It's more than just CO2. It's also making sure that the limited amount of resources that we have, that you track them, and that if you use resources, you can reuse them in another way at a certain moment without having to melt them or, but making sure that they stay there. So if you use aluminum, don't use a die bond panel, but just use raw aluminum. At least you can then melt it and have the real material there still.
But aren't we headed towards a brand narrative, just like modernism was, that everybody's doing sustainability now? If the building's sustainable, it's quote unquote good. And if it's not,
no, because sustainability that has nothing to do with how you experience a building, how you live in a building. So you can have a very sustainable building and it can be still horrible. So sustainability and good. Maybe you're right. At this moment, it is a narrative, but I also think that where, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, if you wanted to have a sustainable building, it needed to be wood. We all now we're not going to build 100% of our buildings in wood. It's just not possible. So the narrative needs to change, and our buildings need to become sustainable, and we still need to make good architecture. So sustainable building being good, that's maybe a narrative that's here now, but I'm pretty sure that, I mean, in Holland, it's all about material use. It's a bit before 2040. We want to have a circular economy. That has nothing to do with PV. That has to do with how do you think about your buildings. And that a lot of it is really going back to old techniques, thinking about how you can reuse elements.
You mentioned that you were doing a building where steel was bolted, concrete pads were bolted in instead of welded. How much more expensive is it to make a building like that? And is it that strong?
It wasn't more expensive. It's just you need to think about this from the beginning. The only limitation that it had was that I couldn't use some types of flooring because there is slight movement in the building. We used a marmoleum and linoleum that can handle this so that it doesn't crack and doesn't share. So it's just thinking about it differently. It didn't make the building more expensive.
The silos that you showed at the beginning of that was
Copenhagen.
very interesting adaptive reuse. What country was that in, and what's the name of those buildings?
It's in Copenhagen, Denmark, and it's called the Gemini.
The Gemini.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you put an ambitious international practice. You build in places that have more rigid building codes and legislations than the Netherlands, and less rigid building codes and legislations than the Netherlands. How do you reconcile the technical aspects of building? Like, for instance, when you're building in San Francisco, there must have been 10,000 more rules than you're used to with Rotterdam. And maybe when you're building in Seoul or somewhere else, there's a lot less. How does your team process deal with that layering of rule and design ambition?
First of all, in most of these cases, we work together. For example, building in San Francisco. We worked with Perry Architects, local architect from San Francisco. And we do it in most of our cases in Holland, Germany, and France. We can do everything ourselves from the beginning to the end. In all the other countries, we work together with a local architect. And sometimes that is from the SD, but most of the time we actually do this directly from concept. We sit with them, have workshops together with the client, work as a team on the project to make sure that we have this local input, that we have the right introduction to the city, that we know the rules and regulations. I mean, before building in San Francisco, I never worked with KIPS. All of a sudden, that was one of the big things that we needed to discuss when we did foundations. Of course, we have here earthquakes, so that's something that you need to. You need local knowledge for that to make sure that you have all the. And how do we deal with this? Is I must say, the most people that work in our firm are used to this. Are the people that work on American projects work on it for longer, so they know. I mean, the biggest thing is actually not rules and regulations, because a lot of it is internationally actually quite the same. We really had to get used to feet and inches. Also, a very small thing that all of a sudden you need to think of.
One last question.
What was your strategy in facilitating all the different actors for the Rotterdam rooftop network? And I'm wondering, I think you mentioned that the city of Rotterdam received its international recognition as you'd say the #1 place to visit in the world.
Yeah, at a certain moment, that was,
What does it mean for you being from there to transform your hometown like that? Such an important role in transforming.
No, I mean, the market hall that I showed, the project in the beginning, the nice thing about this project was that this was one of these projects that took a time to get there. It wasn't a difficult project, but it wasn't there at the right time. So it took a couple of years to get there. The city at a certain moment, we will buy the parking and then we will export. Then they sold half of the apartments to a rental company that made it affordable housing, and that really helped to start the project. At a certain moment, we had the opening of the building, and that was of course with all the dignitaries were there inside this market hall, fantastic. And after the opening, we went into the church where was then the after party. And after 30-40 minutes, I actually slipped out of this after party and went back to the building. And they opened the building at that moment. When we walked out on the other side, they opened the front side to the public. And I walked in, and it felt like the building was there already for years. People were walking around. There were people already with shopping bags. We were like, how is it possible? They went to the grocery store. And that was, I think, one of the nicest moments in my career, to see that a building that you delivered in such a short time became part of the environment. It changed a lot, because it became a tourist attraction. So there used to be a lot of fresh fruit vegetable stands there. They changed into more a food court type of places now. It attracts about, I think, 7 million visitors a year, a lot of tourists. But yeah, it really helped to transform the city, and it really helped. Yeah, that's something, of course, as an office to be just incredibly proud of, to be part of this. And it wasn't us; it's one of these elements. But because they came all together at this moment in the city, and that's something that the city, of course, has been building up for a very long time. That was something very nice to see.
Thank you very much.